Hi everybody, KUDO Mal from the GKA dojo in South Wales. I've been asked a number of questions recently in response to some of the things that have gone up on the internet. So I thought I would just go through the questions, answer them all, because they were all linked. So let's go from the top. So the first question that I was asked was, does rank matter? Well, yes, I think so personally, because they're milestones, aren't they, of your dedication, effort and achievement. But they're only relevant within your own organisation. So does that mean the higher the rank, the better the martial artist? Well, I think so as well, because there's so many areas of development that you've got to get through, and it takes time to learn your martial art and your place within it. But it doesn't make you a better fighter. The other question I was asked was, what do I think of honorary grades without physical grading? Well, that's an interesting question, because my 5th and 6th dan were awarded to me as honorary grades. So for the first 13 years, I studied Budokan and Shotokai karate. But due to politics, I left Budokan, leaving me isolated, as the other styles were similar in organisational structure. I continued by the Shotokai stance, as sport was not an emphasis of the group. Shotokai was taught to me by my instructor, by a Japanese Mitsusuke Harada, who had moved to Wales. Harada sensei was a direct student of Gishin Funakoshi, an instructor of Shotokan dojo. In his death, Harada was part of the group chosen to support the funeral and to promise to continue teaching of Funakoshi, not the sport. Harada sensei was a 4th dan, and when asked why did he not grade any further, he said, how could I? My teacher was 5th dan. Not even Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo, convinced Funakoshi to adopt the 10th dan model, as it was only after Funakoshi's death that he was awarded 10th dan. So the question that should be asked really is anyone's grade after 4th dan legitimate? Due to these facts and my love for karate history, I insisted that any grade after 4th dan would be honorary myself within the club. I don't believe in self-awarded grades, as that only shows the size of a person's ego. I've heard stories of self-promoted black belts who are happy to award themselves multiple grades without examination, just because they felt that their standard was as good as another 4th dan in another style or another karate group. I've even heard a story that a guy was so desperate to have the name of Shian that he printed his own downgrade and took it to somewhere where he felt that he could get someone to sign it. I feel for people like that, because obviously they have insecurities that need constant affirmation. And they need to feel valued. That's why honour grades should be given by a panel with consideration where the person's at and where they're on their journey. A panel of people should know the person and their work for long enough, especially their path to that point, to even consider giving them a grade within their organisation. Otherwise, the whole thing is questionable. Another question then was, what do I think of people that collect downgrades or jump from one organisation to another? Well, personally, I don't see a problem with this, as long as you do it respectfully and for reasons of development. There are so many that follow trends. So people move to the martial art that makes them look cool. That gives them the image that they're the tough guy. This isn't a problem, really, is that if they achieve a black belt from the organisation, if it's one with integrity, as their responsibility to make sure the black belt is given to a person, understands that they need to be respectful, understand the martial way. If a person achieves a black belt and then leaves, you have to look at the organisation more than you have to look at the student. In my opinion, if it's a good black belt, then the relationship always remains between the downgrade and the awarding organisation. I myself left after achieving a 2nd dan in Karate Budokan, for the reasons that I was mentioning. And after the Grandmaster died, I didn't like the sport direction the organisation was going. Under this regime, I did 3 black belt gradings. I had confirmation of my standard by Grandmaster Richard Chu on his visit to Wales, after his father passed, the Grandmaster. As I mentioned before, I was isolated after leaving Budokan, but I was desperate to show karate could be effective in multi-style formats. MMA wasn't a thing then. I joined the Great Britain Martial Arts Association, which was headed by the late Curtis Page, father of kickboxer, boxer and Bellator MMA fighter Michael Venom Page. Those guys were animals, absolute animals. But I learned more about semi-contact fighting, how it could be used in a full contact arena, and so many different things on a multi-style basis. I was saddened to hear the passing of Curtis, and I feel privileged to have graded for 3rd dan's organisation. I left that organisation a few years later when my sensei Brendan Simmons left Budokan to help me develop the growing Goshin karate. People say that I take pride in where I get my grades from, my achievements, and do I feel like worthy to wear the 6th dan? And of course I take pride in my grades. They're independent and they've shaped my life. I used to think that the downgrade system was a way of measuring progression, but after years of experience, all it comes down to is what you can actually do for real. You can practice and teach theoretically, but you should be proud of your rank in the organisation because it's relevant. But for example, I wouldn't be proud if I was a 5th dan in an organisation of 10 people, or a 5th dan of an organisation where downgrades are handed out to anyone willing to pay enough. Yes, I am proud of my 6th dan, as I grew up following the work of Peter Constantine and Jeff Thompson, Ian Abernethy. They were years ahead of the curve, and most importantly, what they worked for was real. With that said, I'm equally as proud to wear my 1st dan in Daido Juko Kudo, as a standard of the realism of contact fights is internationally recognised. There's no poor black belt in Kudo, because it's not part of the training. You have to put the time in. Of course, being graded by Jukucho Izuma Takashi is a great honour. He's a Japanese martial arts legend. But after getting to know him better, I can understand his vision and respect, and I respect him as a person, because this is the reason I value the grade so much. People talk about this tough guy image. So do I think I'm a tough guy? Nope. I learned the hard way thinking that way. I've lost teeth, eye damage, I've got scars, everything else to prove it. I've had enough life experience to know that when someone really wants to hurt you, they can, whether directly or indirectly. Also, it comes to the conclusion that the tougher someone thinks you are, the dirtier tactic they are when attacking you. I'm a big fan of not acting tough, as you know, that you can take that advantage when it comes to a fight. I still have people throwing challenges at me, but I don't care for fighting as their ego is huge. I don't care for fighting, just for ego. But if they stepped into my dojo and approached me or approached my family, it'd be a different story altogether. But deep hatred for bullies and that, have zero tolerance for anyone within the martial art community who does stand in that point. If you're asking if you think I'm tough, well, let's say only if it's justified. Then it comes on to which martial art I think is better. It usually comes down to the individual. I could also say Kudo, but we have a few restrictions. We wear protection, that changes what you can do. You need to be a mixed martial artist and cross-train. The Gracies still feel their art is the most efficient, and other purists that believe that their art has the depth to cover all bases. But the reality is that you become stylized and therefore predictable. So is there a martial art that's better for self-protection? Again, in my opinion, no. To be good at self-defense or protection, you need to have a high level of self-awareness, environmental understanding, and a basic kit of physical and verbal strategies. If you understand yourself, your limitations, and can recognize social behaviors in others, you would already have strategies to be able to avoid physical harm. De-escalation is taught professionally to staff and security, which is great. It's a great thing, but the reality is that socially skilled attacker will use social norms to gain your trust and then gain the advantage. So in my experience, the guy you don't see is the most dangerous. I've also been asked, would I prefer, or do I think grappling is better than a striking art for the physical skills? Again, I would say MMA would be better, but if I had to choose, it would be dependent on the scenario. If the person in question had a good level of situation awareness and the escalation skills, then I'd say striking. This is mainly because they would have an understanding that something's about to happen and therefore could adopt a hit and run strategy. And I think that's the best option. In addition to that, striking arts tend to be taught at range, which means it becomes second nature to push attackers away and avoid getting into a grapple. But in a scenario involving like a sucker punch or a surprise attack, then I'd say grappling. It's because it's a biological response to reach out and control an attack that you don't see. I also think that grappling arts have a natural ability to deal with close range strikes and give them themselves. So people ask me, should you stick to one style, and what's the pros and the cons? The term martial art is like neutral. So it's a term that people present to give middle ground between all of the arts. With MMA boom, it's also now divided into combat sports and traditional MMA. Recently, you see YouTubers like Seth and Jesse Encam put Kudo at the top of their arts, but then they say it's a sport. They obviously made an assumption with very limited information they had on Kudo. You know, that is the problem when people make assumptions about certain arts. You can't say that Kudo is not a martial art as well as it is a martial sport. It's like when Jigoro Kano changed Japanese Jiu-Jitsu into Judo, and that was considered a combat sport. Yet these days, Judo is very much on the traditional martial arts lists. Does it make a difference? At the end of the day, I know plenty of martial artists that fight harder and dirtier than MMA fighters. And I also know a few people who attend MMA gyms who have never fought, so they just enjoy the atmosphere and the image. I fully understand there's a rivalry between styles, and after all, you have to believe in what you're doing. Over time, you get better and stronger, and you know, unless you test outside your group, you're obviously not going to know anything, so you're going to believe you're the best. It's common practice for instructors to badmouth other styles out there out of fear of losing students. It's also normal to have an emotional response to become defensive when someone criticizes something that you believe in. I mean, that's the main reason that people don't step outside their style. What if the criticism's justified? Unfortunately, the insecurities of these people are passed on to others. In my experience, people who train for a long time and now have branched out tend to use their first art as their foundation for a variety of other learning experiences. Also, I've noticed that people have a lesser personal need for achievement of higher ranks. And of course, not everyone says or stays in their style without branching out and doing it out of fear. There are a lucky few that find the style of their practice does actually meet their needs. These people may not branch out, but they tend to have a more appreciative or are more appreciative of the differences between the arts and are open-minded enough to be influenced by them. These group of people tend to achieve high grades and their experience is undervalued in the modern day thinking. These people hold on to the underpinning knowledge and the essence of a style and its originator. They play an important historical part in preserving the art and also playing a part of evolution. I enjoy meeting open-minded people no matter their belief. In a nutshell, I like people who look for common ground and celebrate differences in martial arts or in life. The advice I'd give to someone who was coming into the martial arts is simple really. Try any art where the instructor treats you with respect and equality. If you have to call him or her sensei when you see them out about in town, or they have their own insecurity issues to sort out. Make sure that the class is safe but challenges you every lesson. Don't become comfortable. Don't be put off by small class sizes. Not every large group provides quality. Let's face it, it's pack mentality that takes you down that path in the first place. Watch a class first. See if the students pressure test for what they actually practice. Most important thing to consider is that you need to dedicate yourself and stick to the style for at least a couple of years before you'd have an understanding. You can't expect to analyse the efficiency of a style within a few weeks. Neither can you become proficient in an art as a martial artist or a fighter without a solid foundation. Dedication and loyalty are lessons that will take you on a journey, but honesty will choose the path. I hope you found this helpful. I'm Mal. See you on the other side.